Local reports about earlier this week how you opened the doors of City Hall to protesters. We have some video here showing, I think it was almost 1,000 people or so who were inside of City Hall. The president, as I know you're aware, has threatened to intervene in your city, and he's called actually protesters domestic terrorists, anarchists as well. Can you give me your reaction to that?
I think what's happening is this incredible movement, this uprising, this rebellion that's not just in Seattle, but nationwide, including in cities like Boise, Idaho, is incredibly inspiring to the vast majority of American people, but it is also threatening to the right wing and the reactionary agenda of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a coward, and it is it's not surprising, but it is horrific for him to threaten entire cities like Seattle and working people and ordinary people and our black and brown community members who are courageously protesting against police violence, threatening them with further escalation and with military targets. I think it is, we have to absolutely reject this idea. And in fact, in that spirit, on Monday, I will be bringing in legislation to vote to ban the use of all chemical weapons and crowd control, so-called crowd control weapons against protest movements, and to ban chokeholds. It's extremely important that we take this historic moment to win real victories against police violence, defund by at least 50%, and fight for an independently elected oversight board over the police.
And this autonomous zone, council member, is, I mean, that's in your area. So just tell us, for, I think, curious people outside, certainly of the city, they want to know what it is. How do you define it?
The autonomous zone, as it's been called by the protest movement, is an incredible area of peace and friendship and dignity, and to take the movement forward. So it is full of hundreds of ordinary people, young people, children, families, and this is a movement obviously led by black and brown community members, but it is welcoming to people from all over the city and the region who want to join in the struggle against police violence. Enough, we have to move forward, building our movement further. But the autonomous zone provides an inspiring and just a positive example of how we can have a vision for a society that is equal, and that provides a peaceful avenue for everybody to have a political and frank discussion without the presence of the police. And I have to say, what we have now in the autonomous zone, which is a completely peaceful and friendly environment, is a stark contrast for what it was for 8 days, just very recently, with every night Seattle police inflicting incredible brutality and violence, horrific, against the peaceful protest movement led by black and brown people. I was myself there on Sunday night alongside hundreds of others. I was tear gassed and maced. And you can see this incredible violence and the whole community of Seattle and the region and the country actually coming together and rejecting this violence, rejecting a status quo of murders by the police of black and brown people, and demanding a change. And I have to say, Donald Trump is a coward. We have to fight against the reactionary agenda. At the same time, we have to hold the establishments in various cities accountable. This violence against the peaceful protest movement on Capitol Hill was carried out by Mayor Jenny Durkin, and that's why it's no surprise that tens of thousands of people in Seattle are calling for her resignation, because they reject police violence, they reject police brutality, and we want a society that is based on equality and cooperation.
I do want to ask you, you said, look, we were looking at even so many people going into City Hall, it was peaceful. What if something happens where things go awry, if there is violence? Then who steps in then?
Well, absolutely. We are all united in wanting a society based on public safety. But the statistics, and just if I might speak as an economist for a moment, the statistics show, unfortunately, that it is not by continuing to have a bloated police budget and by having police armed to the teeth that you can have peace. It's actually the exact opposite. It's when you have a society that is free of that kind of oppressive and repressive policing that it's possible. I mean, as far as things going awry, I can tell you the only thing that went awry day after day after day since the first protest on May 30th was the police under orders by the Democratic Party establishment and Mayor Durkin. It was the police making things going awry. They were the ones who were armed to the teeth with riot gear, and they came there with their rubber bullets, with their chemical weapons, with their tear gas, with their mace canisters and their rifles, and they were the ones who were shooting flashbang grenades at ordinary people. A 7-year-old girl, a child, got maced by the police. So you can imagine the kind of clarity that is developing among people, that we don't want this kind of policing, as actually they are the ones who are responsible not only for this violence against protest movement, but let's keep in perspective, this movement, this Justice for George Floyd movement, has come up, this rebellion has happened in the first place because police departments in city after city after city have been murdering black and brown people, exacting systematic violence against people with impunity. This has happened with impunity. Not a single police officer so far has been prosecuted. Under Mayor Durkin, for example, in Seattle, 8 black and brown community members have been murdered at the hands of the police. Not one police officer has been prosecuted. We need to change the status quo. That is why our movement is demanding that we defund the police by at least 50% and divert those funds for community programs, for restorative justice, so we begin to address this systematic racism. But we need beyond that. So as I said, we need an independently elected community oversight board which has full powers over the police.